Picture the scene. It's Friday night. I've waited all year for the Six Nations to start again, and it's finally here. I've ordered a pizza to arrive half an hour before the game to mark the occasion. It's going to be a great night. Nothing can go wrong. Then France happened. It's half time. Wales were atrocious, the rugby was rain-trodden, and my pizza still hadn't arrived. It looked like nothing could possibly go right. Then France happened. Friday night marked the biggest ever comeback in a 4, 5 or 6 Nations match, with Wales eventually taking the lead in the 59th minute, just moments after the pizza guy finally knocked on my door. So, how the hell did Wales pull it off, and how did they find themselves in that pit to begin with? You can attribute a certain amount of Wales' poor play in the first half to the conditions, with Parisian weather firmly set to noir, but there was far more to it than that. They were borderline incompetent. Whilst the weather can explain and excuse a few dropped balls, it doesn't cover the inarticulate nature of the Welsh defence. The line speed was inconsistent, and but for a few outstanding spot tackles by Jonathan Davis, the scoreline could have been a lot worse. Wales' defence, traditionally, holds its shape better than almost anyone else. When teams break it, it tends to be down to an individual error rather than a systematic one. The structure is very hard to manipulate and deconstruct. And yet, France were able to tear it down, playing rugby that Wales would normally have no trouble tackling. Let's start with France's second try, because numeracy is a social construct. Whereas normally Welsh players are very good at keeping to their role in the wall, over the space of just 4 phases, France managed to totally disalign Wales' defence. Players sucked in to make tackles instead of keeping to their positions, meaning other ones had to come in and pick up the slack, therefore moving themselves out of position. This left Gareth Anscombe covering the wing 13 channel. Anscombe isn't used to this, so his positioning is off. Many teams' defences would then scramble and shift rather than letting an out of position player be exploited, but Wales stick to their system, the inside men trusting the guy in the wide channel to know what he's doing. Anscombe does manage to make up the ground and hit his man, but he does it just in time for North to arrive and totally misread the play, giving Couturier a chance to throw a miracle offload to Yoann Huget, everyone's favourite. Actually, no, you know what? I'll talk about Yoann Huget later. We'll come back to this guy. You can look forward to that. Anscombe's name comes up once again when discussing Pickemore's try. He makes a misread, focusing on the laurier-shaped brick sat in the attack. France instead go for the quick bean out the back, Madar, a man Anscombe should have been marking. This forces Josh Adams to bite in from the wing to cover Madar. Anscombe then tries to overcompensate for his mistake, rushing too hard to cover the wing when Liam Williams already had it covered. Instead of trusting his bandy-legged compatriot and holding his space, he rushes in, making him easy to step and the tackle very easy to miss. Let's talk about Gareth Anscombe for a second. People call Anscombe chicken, which is alarming considering he plays with a man known as the Fox, but after a handful of mistakes early on, he started to live up to his name and looked like the sky really was falling in. Confident shot, focus gone, and yet a Wales team at odds kept continuing to put Anscombe in tricky positions as he started trying all too hard to reignite his confidence by kicking when it wasn't on and running at blind alleys, forgetting the likelihood of getting mugged. Anscombe needed the time for self-assessment that halftime provides and started to play more like himself after the break. He is a mentally strong enough player to pick himself up and dust himself off after he's made mistakes, but unlike rival for the shirt Dan Biggar, he isn't yet able to do so quickly enough. For all the praise Anscombe has received since taking the starting shirt, 3 of the 4 games he's played have essentially been won by Biggar coming off the bench. This sounds like criticism, but it's actually a huge positive for Wales. Picking Gareth Anscombe is a gamble. He can play some lovely rugby, but he can also do this. But if he's going to do that, Wales is still able to revert to type and haul Biggar's ass onto the pitch and tell him to just put some shape on the game and still come through with the win. Gatland let Anscombe throw everything at France for 10 minutes after half time, giving him a chance to rebuild his confidence, then put Biggar on to close things out once they were in touch. It worked tactically and it worked psychologically, giving Anscombe a shot to rebuild his confidence by backing him to turn things around. Too much is invested in Anscombe to risk tearing him down this close to a World Cup, so Gatland gambled for the sake of the long game. And I'll tell you what, Warren probably should have thought about putting some money on the Euro Millions that night, because he was a very lucky man on Friday, with Wales getting back to within 2 points thanks to this act of Frenchness by Yoann Huget. I love Johan Uge. Commentators will often say, oh, you just never know what he's going to do when talking about a back. But what they mean is, I don't know if he's going to kick, step or pass. When Johan Uge catches the ball, he's just as likely to punch the referee or start licking his teammates' boots as he is to chip the opposition defence and score a stellar solo try. If picking Anscombe is a minor gamble, picking Uge is like betting your life savings on Alex Cuthbert having horse DNA. You can see the argument for doing it, and if it comes off, the odds are spectacular. But objectively, holy shit, is it a bad idea. Let's look at that try, because the common wisdom is it's a terrible kick and Uge just managed to do something even shitter and gift North the try. But if you ignore the advantage goal, it's actually a very smart kick. Parks identifies France playing quite a common modern kick defence strategy, which is to place a winger flat before sliding backwards once the ball comes out the scrum, making the space they're kicking to disappear after the decision is made. However, Parks doesn't target the wing. Instead, he plays it through the middle of the field, meaning space is found, and crucially, the ball then stops a few yards short of the try line. This forces Uge to play it. Parks realistically probably figures the best case scenario is that Wales force Uge into grounding the ball behind his own try line, but Johan isn't having any of Parks' shit. Uge play by nobody's rules. Not the referee, not the EU, and certainly not the athlete Parks. You want Johan Uge to hold onto the ball and play it? I'll knock it right on into the hands of the opposition winger, admirably chasing a semi-low scores. Nobody will see that one coming. That is the Uge way. I am un genius to rugby. There's been a common thread in punditry that another team wouldn't have let Wales back into the game like that, but George North's tries were not the result of French mistakes, but individual mistakes by French players. Simple, stupid mistakes that, actually, no, now you say it, all other test teams are completely incapable of making those mistakes, and they certainly wouldn't happen to other teams. Other teams just wouldn't do things like that. However, letting Wales back into the game is one thing, but France had no idea how to actually win the game. Even though they took the lead again, got no idea how to win. Whilst replacement hooker Julian Marchand shored up the scrum, and the ever-glorious backup 9 Baptiste Saran is basically a misogynist attitude and a pack of cigarettes away from being the star of a 60s Jean-Luc Godard film, they lacked the bulbous-headed, stubborn leadership qualities of Gillen Guirado and Morgan Parra, who kept the forwards and backs respectively in shape before they were taken off, and the replacements let things get far too loose. And yet, Wales gave them enough chances, losing the ball twice in the dying minutes and giving the game a final quarter so stressful it aged me to the point which I now basically have Alan Wynne-Jones' hairline. Wales have got far better at closing out games, but they still have an alarming habit of giving the opposition a final shot at them in the last play. This is something Wales need to fix fast before it loses them a game at the death, either in this Six Nations or in the World Cup coming up. That might not happen next week, however, as Wales travel to the home of pizza, desperate to deliver, and try not to be as late as they were this week in doing so. And as for Johan Uge's Barmy Army, well, England are just going to have to pray to the Alan Wins above that the type of France they want is the one that happens. Thank you for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to have one on England Ireland coming up in the next few days. I'm trying to cover as many of the games as humanly possible, but that does mean, for example, I won't be covering Italy Scotland, just because the only thing I have to say on the game, frankly, is that I'm very glad I put Blair King on in my fantasy team. Speaking of which, oh boy, moving on, it's almost like I planned it. I do have an ongoing Squidge Rugby Fantasy League. If you do want to join that on Super Brew, there is a link in the description, which is down there for you. Down for me is just my legs. Currently top of the league is the Elite Biscuit Farmers Vivid Oysters, which is an excellent and randomly generated name. Second is the Felching Pharaohs, and third, Brabby Josh's Ardent Grasshoppers. If you do want to try and compete for those guys or try and beat me, I'm currently 94th out of 700 and something, so I'm reasonably happy with that. You can head to the Super Brew page, as I say, link in the description. Also, if you want to support the channel, you want to chuck me a few pennies to allow me to continue doing this, which is greatly appreciated, you can head to Patreon. The current Patreon's floating up around here, one of these sides somewhere. Thank you very much. Also, we'll head to Rugby Warfare. You can get 20% off on everything on their website by entering the offer code SG20. And if you want to head back here, hopefully in the next few days, I'll see you again for England versus Ireland as I try and cover what went on in Dublin. See you then.